Hello, welcome. Welcome to Round Glass. My name is Alex Maizuss, and today I'd like to welcome you to our first session in our series, Mind, the Perpetual Storyteller. So this 5-week series is an exploration to the many stories we tell ourselves, a way to see how we are, how some stories are so great and enhancing, and some stories are just limiting, and how we are with these stories, how we navigate in them. So today, we'll get really familiar with the story, with our own story. We might even give the storyteller a name. So we'll be able to really explore this in a little more depth. So my experience as a mindfulness coach with athletes and the entertainment industry, I've often heard professional baseball players say that the game is more in the mind than in the field. And this is really something that's always caught my curiosity. And this is how I got into this really performance and mindfulness into this field, because I was very curious to know what was it that was actually making the difference between a peak performer and a performance that just achieved average. So with mindfulness, another thing that we can kind of tune into is besides being in the present moment, besides noticing what's happening, is seeing, getting perspective, and creating a little bit of separation between the story and what is real. And so, with peak performance, really what we're aiming at or tuning into is a sense of confidence, effortlessness, and concentration. And this sense of confidence really taps right into the attitudinal foundation of courage in mindful performance. And you might be wondering, how does that work? Well, when we're present in the moment, moment by moment, we're actually able to tune in to what we're doing right or what it is helping, I'll say, enhancing our game, enhancing our performance, or what is actually not working so well for us. So every time you notice that something is helping and is achieving, it's allowing you to achieve what you wanted in the moment, is getting you closer to also reaching your goal. So this courage starts to build up to the next bigger challenge. So we can grow in this way. If we're confident in this moment, we're going to have the courage to go into the next. Now, effortlessness. With effortlessness, it doesn't mean that we're just kind of throwing it all out the window and we don't care and we're not putting any effort into. Quite the opposite. It means that we're so prepared, that we've worked so hard, we've trained so well, that now it's just flowing. It's just kind of the game, your performance, whatever it is that is your field of performance, is just flowing right through you effortlessly because you're confident that you're going to perform at your best. And this brings a sense of the attitudinal foundation in mindfulness of balance. And so we do need to have that right balance. So whether you're performing as an athlete, professional athlete, or whether you are maybe your area of performance is just life in general, right? Who doesn't want to do better moment by moment? Who doesn't want to achieve their goals moment by moment? This sense of balance could be really important. So professional players might have to balance how much effort they're putting into their game so that they know when they're pushing too much that they might get hurt and it might take a long time to recover, or when they're actually not pushing themselves enough and not working hard enough and they're just getting bored with the game. So this is a clear line, a fine line that we kind of go in between, always noticing and creating this right balance as we work. And that brings me to another description for this peak performance, which is concentration. And really, concentration means that we are just so focused in the moment that nothing else matters. And so that kind of brings me to the attitudinal foundation in mindfulness, again, of focus, right? Being in the moment in this way in which everything else just doesn't matter, because we're one with the game, we're one with our performance. And if you're just taking this class because you like to be more present, it's all about how are you showing up for life in general, right? How are we really showing up? Are we really rushing through life, one thing after the other, one accomplishment after the other? Or are we really taking the time to savor each moment, moment by moment? Because how can we really reach all these goals that we have in mind, all the stuff that we want to achieve in life, if we're not here in this moment? We can't be prepared for the next. So I was thinking, that maybe what sets some people apart from others in their level of performance is the fact that those who achieve peak performance really believe that there's no limits to what they can achieve in life. So this brings me a little bit into that story, right? The storytelling mind. And so the mind is going to tell stories. So let's get that straight. It's going to do it anyway. So this is not about suppressing the story. This is not about ignoring the story or seeing the story as something bad. It's about really becoming aware of when the story rises. And so that in that way, we can actually create that separation that I was talking about instead of getting so involved in the story. And the more we tell the stories over and over, the more that they form beliefs. So eventually we learn to believe what the story is kind of about. So one thing that I wanted to share with you was that I went on this hike not too long ago, a couple of years back. I really wanted to take on hiking, and I was preparing myself. I was working really hard to achieve this hike. And I went on a long one day as part of my training, and within 3 hours, my body just gave up. My legs collapsed. I dislocated in random places, and I didn't know what was happening. Later on, a specialist kind of told me that I had this condition that my body will probably not recover in the same speed as most people. That might take a lot longer or might not recover at all. Some experts say that I'm gonna have to work really hard to walk again, and others say that I might not be able to walk again. That's really beyond whatever they were saying. What's important here is to really keep in mind what happened in my mind as they were saying this. And so this is to give you a little idea of how these stories can actually limit us from achieving anything in life sometimes. So when they were saying this, my mind kept going to, my God, I am disabled. That was the story. I am disabled. I'm not going to be able to walk. I'm not going to be able to do things. How am I going to do that? And I was holding on to that story. So during the time that I was in bed, about 3 months, just figuring out how to move my body, I got to recognize the story. And that allowed me to create some space. Now that I knew what the story was, I could pause. And we'll talk a little more about this pausing, but I could pause and then I could see it for what it was. It was just a story. There were other things that they were saying that I wasn't able to see at that moment. And the other things that they were saying, it's like, it might take a little longer, but I will probably recover, right? That was a much easier to take story than the story that I had created that I would never walk again. I would never be able to do anything again. So keeping that in mind, how when we recognize the story, we can create that space a little bit. We can see the story for what it is, just a story. And then we can create a strategy to move towards it, to move towards our goals. In that moment, my goal was to really be able to walk again. That was what I was holding on to. But I didn't want to hold on too tight to that. And that's part of mindful performance. That we don't hold on to goals too tightly. We kind of have a very loose grip on them. We know that's what we want to get to, but we don't really let them take us down, and we don't let them guide everything. So this brings me to the emotions that come up with some stories. So at that moment, of course, guess what emotion was coming up for me when they said I might never walk again? And I'm just going to give you 1 second to think about it. That was fear. Yeah, I was fearful. I was very fearful that I might never be able to walk again. So with some stories, it might trigger fears, others might trigger anger. right? For instance, if I'm at a job and I'm just, somebody's treating me some way and maybe I created a story around it, then I'm going to be really angry. And that's going to kind of, again, it's going to stop me from achieving my goals. And another thing, how stories get on the way could be also that the story could be so limiting that we think that we're just not going to be able to accomplish our goal. Why even try? And we give up. So we kind of walk away from whatever we are trying to do. We walk away from our dreams and our goals. So really important to keep these things in mind, as today we're going to do a practice, and I'd like you to really tune in to all these things that might come up as we do the practice, and really allow yourself to take care of yourself and tune in to how you feel, knowing that these are normal things, as some stories trigger. But see, they're not real, right? Most of the stories are not really real. And so, in that sense, I don't mean that it's not real what is happening or what you're remembering. It was real that I got into that accident. It was real that I might not walk again. But the story around it was not real. The fact that I thought, I'm never going to do anything again. I'm never going to be able to walk again. I'm never going to get on that bike again. I'm never going to be able to walk, take a hike again. So that wasn't real. So then we can just stay with the first layer, which is, okay, there is an injury, and how do I move forward, right? So again, I gotta share with you that I truly believe that what we tell ourselves makes our life. So the more we tell ourselves these stories, the more we're gonna actually allow that to guide the rest of our lives. So paying attention to this could be really interesting. And I'm seeing in the chat right now, Angelo, oh, from Abu Dhabi. And Jason is in California, and Elizabeth in her peaceful backyard. Well, wonderful. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening so kindly. So, what if we can be open to just seeing our setbacks as, learning experiences, and create self-enhancing stories, but based from a place, coming from a place of wisdom. I'm not talking about replacing stories. I'm talking about really deeply, and we'll do that in the next class. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to learn how to really create stories that work for us. So I'd like to invite you to just kind of tune in to this moment. Just drop in, tuning in to where you are, wherever you're sitting, lying down, standing, it doesn't matter. As long as you're here and your intention is to be present, we're good. So just tuning in to the moment, eyes open or eyes closed, and just allowing yourself to settle in here, settling in the body. And by that, I mean really allowing the body to really safely just sink into this cushion or the chair that's holding you. If you're standing, the floor beneath you. Just feeling the pull of gravity here. Noticing maybe the heaviness of the arms. Noticing how you're held and cradled by the earth in this moment. And as we do this, maybe just tuning in to the palms of your hands or your breath. Just noticing how you're breathing. And just becoming aware of this sense of being, that there's nothing wrong with doing. Doing is absolutely okay. But we want to balance it out with just being. So we're working on the being part of it. And as we explore stories, all I'm going to invite you to do is just pay attention to any thoughts that might be kind of navigating in the mind right now. And now bringing your attention to any stories that you're aware of that might have held you back in the past. And a story can be simply something that says, I'm just no good at math, or I'm not a morning person, or I can't function without my coffee, or I need my wine after work to unwind. Just noticing the story without judgment. There's no right or wrong way of doing this, but just noticing what comes up for you. And there's nothing else that you have to do for now, but just look into the story, notice it, become aware of it. And then if you notice a story that's coming up for you that is a constant story, maybe just making the commitment to notice it every time that it pops up this week. So this storytelling mind, you can even give it a name. You can just say, oh, Joe is telling me this story. That's it. Creating space, creating a little bit of room between the stories. So give your storyteller a name, whatever works for you. And then next time you notice a story, just acknowledge it for that, acknowledge the fact that it comes from this storyteller, that it's not you, that it's just a natural process of the mind. Then, at your own pace, whenever you're ready, taking in a deep breath and exhaling long and letting go of the story for now. Just allowing it to kind of fade away in the background. It's not important at this moment. But every time it pops up this week, just say hello to it. That's it. Oh, hi, there you are again. Hello, there you are again. And that's pretty much all it takes. So this is a very short practice that you can do at any time. And again, if you haven't, heard anything I said, because the mind does distract quite a bit, and at the beginning, I kind of give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about. If you notice that, just remember that these classes are recorded. And so you can always follow me on my profile and come back to it at any time. You can pause it, you can review it, you can do the meditation as many times as you like. It's very short so that you can practice it a number of times a day. It's just a matter of tuning into your breath, noticing the thoughts, noticing the story, and then moving from there. And then maybe just for now, again, checking in with yourself as you come back from that and welcoming yourself every time. And every time you notice and every time you notice, sorry, every time you notice your mind telling a story, just be aware of it. Just notice it and befriend it. Remember, what we resist persists. So I like to share something that I practice quite a bit, which is called pause. So this could really be helpful when we're practicing and as we go about your day, as you go about your day, remembering to pay attention every time you're encountered by experience. And that means what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're sensing. Every time you're encountering this way, there's going to be a story about it. Just notice it and pause. And so with pause, something to remember is P means pause. And A is for allowing. And allowing means that we're just noticing it. Because if we try to suppress it, if we try to ignore it, if we try to change it even, it would just get worse and we're creating a lot more tension in our body. So we want to, this allowing comes also from deep relaxation of mind and body, knowing that this is a story and that's it. So allowing. And then with that allowing, you can actually get a little insight into the story. Now you know there is a story. And that brings you to you of pause, which is understanding. So with this understanding now, understand what's happening. That was just a story. And so now you can see where the mind goes and notice how you're feeling in the body, getting that understanding when the story pops up, to really noticing how you feel in the body. If there's agitation, if your breath is going really fast, right? What is the story really controlling? And then S will be for strategize. So strategize means that now I have a plan. Now I know what to do. Now I can move forward. So really come up with a strategy that works for you, something that works for you. Maybe saying, hello, story, but I'm going to move on. Maybe it'll be saying like whatever name you gave it. So really tuning into that. And then E is for expect. So pause again. The E is going to be for expect. Just expect the best. Just expect that everything is going to go all right. And that can really allow us to create that space again and set us at ease as we move forward with our stories. And so I'm seeing a question in the chat. Sometimes the stories in my mind are subconscious. How can I learn to recognize them? Wow, that's a brilliant question again. So as we're practicing together, we're also practicing to tune into the body. And remember, I was talking a little bit about fear and a little bit about anger and even the wanting to quit. These are subconscious reactions to the story many times. So this is our gateway to what the story is. So just notice when that comes in. For this week, just notice that. And so if you're brand new to meditation, if you never meditated before, this first session is very short, very concise, and a great way to kind of get your feet wet in the water a little bit with this meditation and mindfulness practice. So you can do this at any time, really as simple as just paying attention, noticing the thoughts, notice the story that comes up. This week, that's all we're working with. And so whenever you're really going through life, pause. Just take a moment. Take a moment to see what's happening. So, I'd like to also invite you to, as you notice these stories, as you practice pause during the week, remembering that the meditation that we're doing, every time we're doing this, we're training the mind. So that's a formal practice. But as you go into your day, just paying attention to the stories, that's informally practicing. Just whatever you arrive, just notice what the mind is saying about the place. And if these are subconscious, so unconscious, stories that we don't really can't tell what the story is, the body will kind of guide you. There'll be a little bit of a emotion and you don't know where it came from. Most likely there's story behind that. There's story there that needs to be addressed and known and seen. So um, there are some ways in which you might be able to know what this when the story is a story and when it's reality. And that means that whenever you are experiencing the moment, and you notice the mind making an assumption about it, just question it. I like to use this a lot in conversation, which is a little kind of sideway from performance, but it all comes together, right? When somebody says that, I question, what do they mean by that? Because the mind is going to create a story about everything. So just questioning really if the story is real or not could be the basis for everything. And how you can know is by really understanding exactly what's happening. And most of the time, as I was saying in that hike, for me, it was like I went on a hike, I injured myself. Yeah, it will take some time to recover. That's it. End of story. The rest was just pretty much me um, elaborating stories around it, that I'm not going to be able to walk again, what's going to happen. That was not real. That was based in the future. So every time the mind is going towards the future, that's not real. When it's reminiscing in the past, that's not real either. The only reality is right now, how you're feeling, where you are, and what's happening in this moment. So again and again, just invite yourself to come back to this moment. So I want to thank you so much for joining me, for being here today, and for your commitment to living a more mindful life. Because if you're here, that means that you are trying to be mindful into these areas of performance so you can do better in your area of performance. But not only that, so that you can be more present in your life as well. So I want to thank you for that. Again, my name is Alex Maizuss. And if you're new to Round Glass, I really invite you to look around and see there's so many brilliant classes, and really look at my profile for the next time that I'm here and that you can join me. And we're going to continue this. So for this week, just practicing really staying in the moment, noticing the story. And then the next session will be about noticing, expanding, and limiting stories and how to work with those. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, until we meet again, stay well, stay safe, and stay present. Thank you.